Peace. Today's mathematics is born, which is the number 9. And today I wanted to build briefly on what that means in part. In our language, we teach that to be born means to be complete, or it's a state of completion. What we don't always mean is that this state of completion is always final and absolute. Sometimes it is, but that is not always the case. And it's important to understand the difference, because if we only look at completion as final and absolute, we will limit our infinite potential and the possibility to think and to see and to grow beyond that state that we recently completed. As human beings, we always go through various different processes of growth and development, which are not always physical. I say that because when you look at a child typically goes through a 9-month growth and development process to be physically born. Some children are born before 9 months, but it's typically a 9-month process. When a child is physically born after 9 months, that is not an absolute or final state. They are not complete. And as parents, guardians, caretakers, and adults in general, it is our role and responsibility to take the child that was physically born and to usher them in to the next state or stages of their growth and development, which is beyond the physical. It's cognitive or mental, it's social and emotional, it's economic, it's many different aspects of who we are as a human being, because we constantly go through growth and development processes. So just because we're physically born, that does not mean that we are complete. When you look at our solar system, we have 9 planets. The furthest planet from the sun is Pluto, which is about 3,680,000,000 miles away. It takes about 5 hours and 50 minutes from light of the sun to reach the surface of Pluto. When that light reaches the surface of Pluto, that's not final or absolute. It doesn't stop there. That light goes beyond Pluto. And when you think about what's beyond Pluto, you get into the conceptualization of the Milky Way galaxy and then ultimately the overall universe, which represents everything. Think about the mentality of a scientist who thought or believed that the absolute realm of our existence stops at Pluto. There is a whole realm of space exploration that we would not know anything about. We probably wouldn't know anything about no Milky Way galaxy, or even certain ideas that we have about the universe. But the absolute and the final aspect of our realm of existence does not stop at Pluto. And it's important to be able to think and conceptualize beyond that. In Greek mythology, we learn about the 9 Greek muses, which are the 9 daughters of Zeus. Those 9 daughters represents 9 different sciences or arts. One daughter represents dance, another one represents poetry, another one represents history. If you think about those different sciences of arts in our own life, there is always an opportunity to grow and beyond that science or art that we're actually learning. I think about myself writing poetry in primary school. The poetry I wrote back then is not the kind of poetry that I write right now. But think about if my mindset was limited to completing that one poem that I wrote in primary school and I never grew beyond that. I've had a lot of lived experience. I've grown social and emotionally, cognitively. My vocabulary has expanded. So the poetry that I write today is much different than what I wrote in primary school. It's the same way with any kind of science or art that we involve ourselves in. There's always an opportunity of growth and development once we complete one state or stage of growth and development in that science or in that art. If you want to look at it from a biblical perspective, consider the 9 fruits of the Spirit that you find in Galatians 5:22-23. And those 9 fruits of the Spirit are love, peace, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and then also self-regulation or self-control. Once we learn some level of self-control, that is not an absolute or final state. I mean, the level of self-control that we may have demonstrated at 10 years old is going to be different based upon our life experiences when we're 25 years old. The same thing with joy. You may have accessed some state of joy 5 years ago that is different than where you're at developmentally right now. So these are qualities and characteristics or fruits of the Spirit, which represent opportunities to constantly grow and develop as a human being. So again, we think about something being born or being complete. It is not always absolute or final. And if we look at it that way, we will limit our opportunity for our infinite potential and to see beyond that state of growth and development that we can potentially grow beyond. So I will that this was inspiring, it was empowering, it was educational, and just gave those of you some perspective on how we see born, in part, of course, because there are other levels and stages of growth and development to even see this very principle. Peace. Shatar, come here. Hey, hey, hey. Sit. Good girl. Good girl.